Welcome to the Arthur CUSD 305 UKnight 305 Community Engagement Process. The intent of this video is to prepare attendees prior to virtual session of CES number 1 on Thursday, November 4th and Sunday, November 7th. The information is also here as a reference for those that are attending in-person sessions and need a refresher, or anyone that cannot attend due to schedule. This video, along with all future videos, is available at www.uknight305.com. That's UKnight 305.com. My name is Damian Schlitt with BLDD Architects, and I'm assisting the district and the community-led team in their work to create a master plan for the facilities of Arthur CUSD 305. As we begin, I want to give you an overview of the overall process, the work that's occurred to this point, and what's in front of us to complete. This master planning process can be broken into 3 distinct sections: where we are now, where we want to go, and how do we get there. Now, as you can see from this graphic, where we stand today is not the very beginning of this process. So I want to review some of the work done to this point by the district, essentially preparing us all for this master planning effort. This work has created a strong foundation from which any building master plan can stand. Back in July of 2020, we reviewed with the board the findings from a months-long exploration of current facilities and potential improvements. This past spring, the district undertook a thought exchange, which Scott will discuss in more depth in a moment, and also worked with a task force and focus groups to understand district goals beyond facilities alone. Most recently, the internal administrative team, at the direction of those focus group efforts, explored the programs and opportunities that need to be prioritized and supported moving forward. This is all strong work that gives us a shared and clear lens through which we will develop a plan. And that brings us to this third phase, and where we really need your help to understand how do we get there. This is when we'll develop, evaluate, and ultimately choose a solution that supports our strategic objectives and the vision for the district's and community's future. We will, as a community, review and develop multiple facility scenarios to support the community's vision and the district's needs. We will explore a variety of additions, renovations, and even new construction or retirement of existing facilities. We'll utilize master planning software developed by our firm to assist in refining the solutions to find not just the most financially viable option, but also one with the greatest positive impact on students. Ultimately, this process will allow the groups to narrow the scenarios to a single solution, review the implementation timeline and how it may need phased to align with the district's access to funding, ultimately resulting in a recommendation to the Board of Education of the community's best plan. Now with that, I'd like to pass it over to Dr. Scott Cuffle, who's going to review some of the great work we've done to help get us to this point.
The district aggressively sought feedback and input related to the questions of what type of education was desired for all students and what type of facilities would best serve all students. The variety of thought gathering put the district in a wonderful position to review, analyze, evaluate options, and bring us to the conversations this evening. Once the Board of Education delivered a charge to the superintendent, additional task force work helped create a more clear sense of what types of opportunities were desired to provide quality programming for students in order to enhance the current excellence available for students in District 305. A work group of teachers, administrators, and board members took the challenge to gather feedback and develop and define a future for improved teaching and learning opportunities, and they sought to understand how the necessary improvements for programs would need to translate into new facility improvements. Being mindful of both the facilities and the functionality and flexibility those facilities would offer was top of mind for the working group, and brings you here to provide contributions this evening.
Thanks, Scott. Now, as Scott mentioned, we're here to understand how our facilities can best serve our students, not relative to how nice the exterior is or how leak-proof a roof is, but rather how well it supports programs and our kids. In order to do that, one of the first steps we took when kicking off this process was to evaluate where we are related to the functional performance of the existing buildings. A functional assessment, which is a 96-question survey, grades how well the building functions as a school. In a group, including building principals, vice principals, superintendent, myself, we graded each facility relative to how the facility should function to deliver today's education and support future needs. We talked about having adequate space for instruction, if it's appropriate learning environment, and ultimately does it support our program delivery today and moving forward. These result in a functional grade for each building. This is a comparative between all of the district's facilities, and this score will act as a baseline against which future scenarios can be compared. 90 to 100, it meets today's needs as a school and can easily accommodate likely future needs. For reference, a brand new building typically scores in the 95 to 97.5 range. 70 to 90 is considered satisfactory, meets today's needs, and with some minor investment, should accommodate likely future needs. 50 to 70 is borderline, meets most of today's needs, but will require major investments to meet future needs functionally. 30 to 50 is considered poor, doesn't meet many of your needs today, and major investments are there just to continue in service. And less than 30 is considered inadequate. This should not be used for education. As you can see, beside the Atwood Hammond School, the other three buildings land below the borderline score of 70. This means that some major investments are needed to make these future-focused buildings able to implement best practices in educational design. If we look by category, we can see that the facilities are all safe and secure, but we do have major opportunities related to the educational adequacy, or how well it supports our programs. Another area is relative to the educational environment. So the next step of our current condition assessment is reviewing the physical condition of our current facilities. A little bit of background just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Arthur CSD 305 has 4 buildings serving just under 1,100 students. Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond High School in Arthur serves roughly 315 students 9 through 12. Originally built in 1929, the facility has had 3 major additions over the years, with the most recent occurring in 1993. The facility is now approximately 82,300 square feet. The district's pre-K through 8 population is supported by 3 grade school facilities. Arthur Grade School, which serves roughly 380 students pre-K through 8, originally built in 1960, this facility has had 2 major additions over the years, with the most recent in 2010. The facility is now approximately 48,000 square feet. Lovington Grade School, serving roughly 190 students pre-K-8, originally constructed in 1960, with 1 major addition in 1970. The facility is now approximately 43,000 square feet. And last but not least, Atwood Hammond Grade School, located in Atwood, serves roughly 270 students pre-K-8. Originally constructed in 1965, this facility has had 2 major additions over the years, with the most recent occurring in 2000. This facility is now approximately 56,000 square feet. Now that we understand our buildings, there are 2 additional sites to consider that support the district's transportation and sports fields. At the Lovington Grade School site is housed the bus garage, a large green space, sometimes used for practices, and the district's only baseball field, which is utilized by all ages. In Arthur, just a block from the high school site, is the stadium and track used by soccer and football. Softball currently utilizes a Park District field in Atwood for their competitive events. So in summary, Arthur 305 has 4 facilities totaling just under 230,000 square feet. To put our current buildings, as well as the upcoming information into context, the value to build this square footage, all new today, would cost north of $83 million. So you can already see the value in finding efficient use of our current facilities when able. In order to understand our current needs, we completed an in-depth physical needs assessment. This work was compiled via site investigations made by the district's design team during tours with building administrators. These tours included architects and engineers. This assessment included all items relative to building, from electrical, HVAC and plumbing, to roofs and even the site. The findings from the physical needs assessment walkthrough resulted in full updates to all of the systems, approximately $19 million. This is roughly 25% of the replacement value of the facilities. Looking at the various systems across the district, most of the need is in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, comprising approximately 60% of the total. Finishes, which is floors, ceilings, lighting, is just under 20%. Roofs are approximately 10%, with sprinkler installation at areas without and asbestos abatement resulting in the final pieces of the pie. While there are approximately $19 million of physical need, those improvements would not improve how the facility supports students and teachers as a school. This work simply replaces and upgrades current systems in current buildings. So now we want to introduce some starter scenarios. These are some potential ideas and solutions to how we might be able to bring our physical and functional needs into line with the vision and goals of the district. Before we begin, I wanted to explain that a master plan scenario is a full solution that is comprised of various options. Options are building level solutions with additions, renovations, retirement, etc. When you decide what to do with various options at each facility, those build into a scenario. Like this, where building A is remodeled, B has a combination of addition and remodel, and C simply has an addition. For tonight's work, we're going to explore 5 scenarios. Each of these aim to solve physical needs as identified by our P&A assessment, functional needs as identified by our functional assessment, and last but not least, provide support for programs and opportunities as outlined by our focus group work earlier this year. Something to note is that in each of these scenarios, there may be options that are common. In those cases, I won't explain it fully each time, just the first time. For instance, the Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond High School remaining in 912 is common throughout these scenarios. At Arthur Grade School, you can see there are 4 different options: a pre-K 8, a 3-5, a pre-K 2, and a pre-K 5. At Lovington Grade School, there are 3 options: a pre-K 8, a 6-8, and a pre-K 5. Atwood Hammond Grade School, a pre-K 8, pre-K 2, 3-5, pre-K 5, and for new building, a new 6-8. Now, before I begin to describe the scenarios, a little review of the full layout. At the top of each scenario is its title and defining description, as well as its overall functional adequacy score. For instance, this one is status quo, P&A or physical needs assessment work only. Next, you can see the name of each campus across the top of the columns. Regardless of grade levels served, we will refer to each site as it is currently to avoid any confusion. At the bottom of each column are basic information related to the option: square footages, grade alignment, and the functional assessment score, both currently as well as after the work of the scenario. Lastly, at the bottom is a legend of colors that are related to things from new construction to retirement or demolition. Now please note, each site is to scale relative to additions, renovations, etc. However, the various sites are not exactly to scale to each other. So the high school site is at a smaller scale than some of the others. In what's referred to as Scenario 0, status quo, physical needs assessment work is the only work that occurs. This can be reflected by the lack of additions or heavy renovation and the lack of increase in functional score. Scenario 1 is called Best Practice Upgrades. This looks at going a step beyond status quo and not only doing physical needs assessment work or P&A work, but also looking at implementing best practice functional upgrades. This includes a complete reorganization of the high school through an infill commons addition and relocation of programs around the facility. Arthur Grade School has a new gym, as well as hands-on and CTE lab additions. Lovington also a new gym space, allowing for conversion of existing gym and other spaces to support other building needs. And Atwood Hammond, shown here with an auditorium and event entry, also gets additions for hands-on and CTE programs. You can see an improvement of the functional score to 84.6 overall. Scenario 2 is one of two grade center scenarios. In this case, Atwood Hammond is a pre-K 2, Arthur Grade School as a 3-5, and Lovington becomes a middle school. You'll notice in scenarios 2 and 3, Lovington is shown as a 6-8 middle school, mainly due to the flexibility of the site for middle school functions. This is a key item to consider. You'll see similarities at the high school relative to its organization to scenario 1. For the 3-5 to occur, a new gymnasium at Arthur. In Lovington, an event lobby along with new gym and auditorium to serve those middle school students. And at Atwood Hammond, small additions for some additional classroom space, but mainly reorganization and realignment of the plan to support those pre-K 2 students. Scenario 3, the other grade center scenario, is similar to the last, with the difference being Arthur as the pre-K 2 and Atwood Hammond being a 3-5. Similar work in the last scenario at the high school in Lovington. You'll see at Arthur a major reorganization to allow for first grade, kindergarten, and pre-K to be nicely housed within the building. You'll also see the addition of a new gym space. Atwood Hammond has the least work in this scenario, mainly reorganization of a central core for library, hands-on learning, and a new secured entry. Now in scenario 4, this is a new middle school scenario. This looks at turning each of the current K8s into K5s and building a central 6-8. It must be noted, this drawing is to scale, but this site has not been identified and it is not understood exactly where this building might be. You'll see the high school plan is very similar to the others, with each of Arthur, Lovington, and Atwood Hammond becoming pre-K 5s, essentially serving less students. The additions are smaller, but renovation and reconfigurations have similarities to some other plans. A gym space at Arthur is a need. At Lovington, reconfiguration of some of the larger gym space into some multi-purpose and commons areas. And at Atwood Hammond, secured entry and the realignment of library, hands-on, and media commons spaces. Thank you so much for your participation and watching the video. We want as many people as possible to attend these sessions, so please help us to spread the word. And we hope to see each and every one of you at our next meeting in person or again on a virtual call. The next meeting is December 1st, 2021 from 6 to 8 in Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond High School Gym, with the final meeting happening in January, CES number 3, on January 12th.